I'm your host, Joel Perez, and it's my honor to be joining you guys back here on the Wrestling with Politics YouTube channel. And today, quite to the contrary of what we usually do on this channel, which you guys, if you're familiar with this channel, are used to seeing me bash these politicians for what they actually are, sellouts of the American people who don't deserve any of your support. Today, we're going to be talking about the only politician who I'd actually vote for, the only politician who does deserve your support as well. Because, of course, today we're going to be talking about Kshama Sawant, who's currently running for Congress in Seattle, her home state of Seattle, Washington, and she's running against Adam Schiff, who's an establishment Democrat and ardent Zionist, and the exact example of the politicians who I talk about on this channel frequently, who you shouldn't vote for by any means necessary, who deserve to get booted out of Congress. And of course, today we're also going to be talking about Kshama Sawant, who recently she had a big interview on Breaking Points with Crystal Ball and Ryan Grimm, two people who you absolutely are more enemies of the working class. And that's why I love Kshama Sawant, because she's a fighter for the working class. She's not like Ryan Grimm and Crystal Ball, who stab the working class in the back by any means necessary anytime they get the opportunity to do so. And that's exactly what they did in this interview, or at least attempted to multiple times, but they couldn't get away with that same tactic here in this interview because they were talking to somebody who is an actual genuine defender of the working class, somebody who actually advocates for the American people. And that's why we're going to be in any way possible trying to spread awareness. And I know there's probably not going to be many people from Seattle watching this video, but by any means necessary, I had to at least voice my support for Kshama Sawant before her election, which is on August 4th. If by any stretch of the imagination this video ends up in the hands of somebody from Seattle who actually ends up voting for Kshama Sawant, hopefully it does, but by any means necessary, I had to make my support known because Kshama Sawant, she's actually a politician who deserves that support. And I can sit here and rattle off her list of accomplishments because she has many. And Kshama Sawant, that's what makes her such an important candidate as well, because she's an independent socialist. And they tell us, at least the mainstream media, people like Crystal Ball, they try to tell us that independent socialists, that third-party candidates, that outsider candidates, they just don't have a chance. They can never win. But Kshama Sawant is actually somebody who does have a chance, and somebody who's gotten things done. What she's gotten done in Seattle, which she can say it much better than me, and we're about to roll the clip, but Kshama Sawant, she's gotten so many important things done. She's won so many victories, and she's the perfect shining example of what you can win and what can be accomplished for the working class using grassroots movements. Kshama Sawant, she's such an important person in our politics. She's a rising star, and enough talking about her. Let's hear what she actually has to say on Breaking Points. Let's roll the first clip here.
I think this is kind of the core of, the debate around your approach versus the approach of Zoran and the DSA. I was personally, we'll just say skeptical of when he came in and said, you know what, I'm not going to endorse against Hakeem Jeffries. And some reporting came out that was important to Kathy Hochul. And so I was kind of critical of that. I was skeptical of that. I was like, you know what, these people, they're never going to work with you. They're going to be adversarial to you. What are you doing? Well, I think that I was wrong and he was right, because ultimately we have to deal with the reality that Kathy Hochul is governor of the state. Donald Trump is president of the United States. We would like it if that wasn't the case, but that is reality. And he was able to secure a very significant win for working class people through being able to work with Kathy Hochul. Now, when he, for example, went and met with Donald Trump, he literally called the man a fascist to his face, but he also has not had the, massive invasion of New York City that we saw, for example, in Minneapolis, which also has very important consequences for working people in New York City. So from my perspective, as someone who now is mayor of a city responsible for millions of people's lives and is trying to cut a balance between, a revolutionary objective, but also working inside a system as it exists, I think he's really struck that balance well of leveraging the mass movement that he built and that DSA has, but also being pragmatic and smart and getting wins for his agenda so that we can prove that socialists aren't just out there like, having a book club and screaming slogans, that they can actually be trusted with power in the city and they can actually deliver measurable, concrete results for the people there.
Well, as far as delivering concrete results, I mean, just to say that we, through a totally different approach than Mamdani, we were able to win we were able to make Seattle the first major city to win $15 an hour. And actually now Seattle has the nation's highest minimum wage of $21.30 an hour. We won the Amazon tax, which is hundreds of millions of dollars every year, defeating Jeff Bezos in a city of around, less than 800,000 people. And we won a whole host of renters' rights in such a way that the corporate landlords, by their own admission, simply could not win in the 10 years that I was in office. And so as far as winning victories for the working class is concerned, I mean, these are massive historic victories that came from one elected office on, as an independent socialist with all the other people being Democrats.
And there in that first clip, you heard Shama Sawant rattle off her list of accomplishments. And quite frankly, it's an impressive list of accomplishments. She was able to fight for and help win the nation's first ever $15 minimum wage. She was able to secure an Amazon tax, which is now being used to tax Amazon for hundreds of millions of dollars and funnel that money back into the unions, back into the hands of the workers. And she was able to also secure a series of renters' rights for the people in Seattle. And her accomplishments have gone so far to the point where Seattle now has the highest minimum wage in the country, $21.50. Those are absolutely impressive accomplishments right there from just a local councilwoman, which is what Shama Sawant was. And now she's looking to run for Congress. And with that list of accomplishments, she absolutely deserves a seat in Congress. But let's talk about Crystal Ball and her bullshit, garbage ass narrative here that you're gonna have to work with people like Kathy Hochul and Hakeem Jeffries, and that's what Mamdani's doing here in New York City to try to get stuff done. And Shama Sawant, she listed off her accomplishments there, and what does this prove? And her accomplishments, what do they prove? And the point that she was making there is that she didn't need to kiss the ass and work and play nice guy with all these Democratic sellout politicians, and that's never gonna be how actual demands and working class movements are built, and how actual demands are secured by playing nice and kissing the ass and playing footsies and giving these sellout bullshit politicians what they want. And that's the crux. And we're going to keep going and repeating this argument here in this video because that's the crux of the back and forth that Shama Sawant and Breaking Points were having. And that's the crux of the entire debate between the DSA left and the left wing of actual revolutionaries who actually want to make some damn change in this country. And of course, the two strategies, this is a debate that's going back and forth, but it's obvious which strategy actually works. Of course, you're never actually going to get concrete demands for the working class by giving these sellout garbage human beings, Zionist politicians, what they want. It's just never gonna work like that. Playing nice with these politicians is a road to a graveyard for whichever policies you're looking to advance. And that's why politicians like AOC, politicians, DSA members, which is what AOC is, and members of the squad, that's why they've gotten nothing done for this country. That's why they can't list the list of accomplishments that Shama Sawant just went through. That's why they haven't secured a $15 minimum wage, not just in Seattle, but nationally, because these politicians are so obsessed with playing nice to powerful people, they think they have to kowtow and play nice to the powerful in order to get things done. And in reality, you play nice with these politicians, and guess what? You're going to get spit on, you're going to get stomped on, and you're going to get stabbed in the front every single time. And you're going to get nothing done for the working class. You're going to get nothing done for the American people. And with that strategy, it makes perfect sense why we're in the place that we're in. Nothing has gotten done for the American people, and the billionaires and the sellout politicians have gotten everything that they've wanted because we're dealing with measly-mouthed politicians like Zoran Mamdani, who apparently is one of them, who's willing to placate to the demands of people like Kathy Hochul instead of fighting and using his base and his millions of followers to force politicians like Kathy Hochul to do what's actually right and what his base and the American people actually want. It's absolutely ludicrous. And if that's the game Zoran Mamdani's playing, then it turns out he's a sellout politician too. But that's a discussion for another video. Let's get to the next clip here.
And with respect on that, though, it doesn't seem that that model has been replicable. I don't take anything away from you in terms of, we've talked before, we interviewed you back in Rising Days, et cetera, and followed your progress closely. I don't take anything away from you in terms of the victories you're part of securing. It doesn't seem that that model has been replicable, though. And, one member of Congress, one mayor, one city council member is not going to be sufficient. Whereas with DSA, they're running hundreds of candidates. They've secured a lot of victories. They've done it on the Democratic Party line. And they're really winning the argument with the Democratic base, which now overwhelmingly supports the politics that you and I do, which to me is an extraordinary thing as well.
Obviously, the Democratic base supports it, but the Democratic base supports us too. I would not have won a single election had the majority of people who vote Democrat otherwise had also not voted for me as an independent socialist. As far as the base is concerned, yes, but that's not the question here. The question is what strategy works as far as the political establishment and the billionaire class is concerned. And you say that Mamdani and the DSA leaders have been leveraging mass movements, and I don't agree with that. They haven't been leveraging mass movements. In fact, they've been doing the exact opposite. And just to give you a concrete example, as far as Kathy Hochul is concerned, Kathy Hochul's back has been against the wall, had been, and so far, especially with the rising consciousness and the anger against the Democratic Party. So in my view, the job of socialists is not to help rehabilitate the political reputations of politicians who are widely exposed as sellouts, as arch-Zionists, as pro-billionaire politicians. And I would certainly not have done what Mamdani did, which is endorse Kathy Hochul in the midst of the New York City nurses' strike at the same moment that she was writing executive order after executive order, helping the hospital bosses hire scab nurses in order to undermine the nurses' strike. So in reality, it is our job to go much, much farther because capitalism is a ruthless system. This is class warfare against us, and we have to fight against that and make sure that we are exposing the politicians even further.
And this clip, there you go, again with Crystal Ball and her propaganda bullshit. She's trying to make it seem like, oh, this isn't replicable. You can't do it now. It's not going to happen again, blah, 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 blah. You did, maybe you were able to do it, Shama, but nobody else is going to be able to do this. And of course, it's because Crystal Ball has no political will. She has no political courage. She has no political imagination. And she's not able to actually fight for anything. So, of course, Crystal Ball doesn't think that this is replicable. And she's instead going ahead and endorsing the DSA, who doesn't have nearly as many accomplishments as Shama Sawant does. Shama Sawant has a way more impressive list of accomplishments than the DSA, who has literally accomplished nothing except getting politicians elected like AOC, who end up being sellouts. What's the point? Oh, you win elections. You win elections and you're getting sellout politicians elected. Okay, big whoop. You're not getting anything done. What matters are the actual concrete demands that you're able to deliver for the working people, for the American people. And that list is zero when it comes to the DSA. But that's a more proven strategy than what Shama Sawant is doing. Okay, give me a break, Crystal Ball, you complete tool. And the second thing here, I wasn't planning as talking as much crap about Zoran Mamdani in this video. I was planning to save that for another separate video. But what Shama Sawant just said, the fact that Zoran Mamdani had the gosh darn gall to support Kathy Hochul, to endorse Kathy Hochul in the middle of a nurses' strike is just completely despicable behavior from Zoran Mamdani, who I actually at one point during the primary supported for my own reasons, just because I didn't want Andrew Cuomo to be in office. But to support Kathy Hochul is just another reason, and piling onto a long and growing list, to why Zoran Mamdani is not the real deal. He's just another standard Democrat, because what's he doing here? He's endorsing an establishment Democrat. He's endorsing an ardent Zionist in Kathy Hochul. Hochul. He's endorsing the lady who was Andrew Cuomo's lieutenant governor, and he absolutely doesn't have to do that. He's going out of his way to do that and to crush a worker strike right there by endorsing Kathy Hochul, who didn't support the nurses strike, obviously. Why the hell are you doing that? Why do you think that's necessary? And again, it's because we know why he's doing this. It's because of that stupid strategy where, oh, you play nice with these politicians and then demand they'll work with you and perhaps give you some of what you want. But guess what? You might get some of what you want, but you're not gonna get what you actually need, what the working people actually need, which is the concrete long list, which Shama Sawan in the next clip is about to list the things that working people actually need, the immediate needs that working people actually need. And in New York City, there's a long list of that. Lower rents, universal health care, as Shama Sawan is about to mention. There's a long list of things that working people actually need. And Zohran Mamdani, he doesn't seem to actually be concerned with securing those things, with mobilizing the millions, with the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers that came out to vote for him. He doesn't seem interested in actually doing that because he can do that. He has the power in this situation. He has the bully pulpit, and he has the millions of supporters, and he can force Kathy Hochul to give him his demands. He doesn't have to play nice here, but he is. And why is he doing that? Because Kathy Hochul is Zohran Mamdani's boss. We know who's pulling the strings here. It's not Mamdani, it's Kathy Hochul. Zohran Mamdani answers to the Democratic Party. He answers to these establishment politicians, and to me, that's absolutely disgusting. Now let's move on to this next clip here, in the final clip of this video, just to not make this video too long, where Ryan Dim, because that's exactly what he is, Dim, he has the balls to ask Shama Sawan, what's the difference between her and the DSA, as if Shama Sawan hasn't been explaining that this entire time. My goodness, but let's roll this clip.
Is all accurate. I think the part that I'm confused about is why it wouldn't also apply to the strategy that DSA is undertaking. For instance, like if you compare their broad idea, they're a socialist organization that is, going for long-term, socialist revolution in the very long term, but in the immediate term, they're trying to reform the system and trying to reform the situation for working people by running candidates in elections. Your organization, it was Socialist Alternative, then I think Revolutionary Worker that you started in 2024. Long-term vision of revolutionary socialism, short-term vision of reform for working people using the electoral system. They have now, well over 100,000 members. I think you could let us know what yours is at now. But otherwise, what's the difference between the two things? You guys both want higher minimum wage, you want higher taxes on the super rich, you want protections for tenants, you want to go after the landlord class. What is the actual difference? It feels to me more like just kind of rhetoric and how we talk about each other rather than something substantive. What am I missing? What's the fundamental revolutionary difference between your approach and what they're doing?
Well, I don't actually believe that the DSA leadership, or at least the part of the DSA leadership that we're talking about, actually agrees that capitalism needs to be overthrown. That is why they go around saying things like, we want to govern capitalism. I don't want to govern the capitalist system. I want to overthrow the capitalist system. That's not their view. If that was their view, and if, they can speak for themselves, but I don't think so. But if that is their view, then they're going about it in exactly the wrong way, because a big part of the task of revolutionaries is to actually expose the role that is played by the representatives of the capitalist system. Because, a lot of times people are clear about, well, is Jeff Bezos on your side or not? Of course, he's not on your side. And even that, sometimes it's not clear. But certainly there's far more confusion about the spokespeople of the capitalist system, including the Democratic Party and even the Progressive Democrats. So if you look at how, for example, one of the leaders of the New York City DSA recently responded about, do you think Chuck Schumer, what do you think about Chuck Schumer? And she says, well, I think generally I'm not opposed to him, but this and that. That is the type of thing that you should not be saying, because you have to oppose just somebody like Chuck Schumer. You have to oppose somebody like Hakeem Jeffrey. So if your goal is long-term revolution, how on earth is that going to be achieved by actually being in a solidarity with the representatives of the capitalist system. Look, the capitalist system does not work in that way. The capitalist system is class warfare against the working class. That's very, that's the, it's not because I'm saying so, that is so. And so a lot of these approaches of, let's make deals with the Democrats, all of this is presented as 4D chess, but it's not 4D chess. Ultimately, it is a sellout of the working class. And we have been through this over and over again. And at this moment, it may not be clear to some people, but in reality, it is pointing to exactly the wrong way. And as far as you all saying that this model has not been replicable, that is because it is very hard to do what I'm doing. When you do what I'm doing, it makes you enemy number one of the ruling class. And that is what many of the gatekeepers, many of the leaders of the DSA and others, they don't want to take on, because on a personal level, it makes your life very, very hard. But that is precisely the approach you need, let alone revolution. That is the approach we're going to need in order to win universal public health care. And so I don't agree with Ryan that this is just a historic point of view. This is not something historical artifact. Today, we need to win universal public health care. Today, we need to end all military aid to Israel. Today, we need to end, to have a permanent arms embargo on Israel. How is that going to happen? I mean, Crystal asked.
That clip right there, the main thing I have to say is talk your shit, Shama Sawant, because what Shama Sawant just said right there in that last clip, it gets to the crux of this whole damn thing. Because Crystal Ball, that's exactly what she's not willing to do. And what Shama Sawant just said there, it hits boom right on the nail, right on the head. This is difficult. What Shama Sawant's doing, that's why you don't see many people doing this. That's why you don't see many politicians like this, because it ain't easy. And that's why perhaps these movements aren't as large as they should be, because that's the number one thing. These movements, in order to build these working class movements, it actually requires time. It actually requires effort. Unlike supporting the Democratic Party, where you just go every 4 years or every time they ask you to show up and just vote for somebody and check a box. In order to build these working class movements, you have to make yourself public enemy number one of some very powerful people. You have to pull up to the protests. You have to get up out of your bed, leave your house, talk to people, tell people about it. You have to make this a very central part of your life, and that requires effort. So perhaps that's why these movements aren't as big as they should be, because it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes many years to build this up. But that doesn't mean that it's not a fight worth fighting. And for Crystal Ball, maybe it isn't, because she's comfortable. Maybe she already has her millions of dollars. Maybe she's already sitting on her mansion. But there's millions of working class people in this country who aren't settled and aren't comfortable and aren't complacent with what the hell is going on in this place. And guess what? That's my message for you people watching this video as well. We shouldn't be complacent, and we should get up off our ass, and we should put in the work that's required to build these movements, as hard as it may be, as at risk as it may put us against some very powerful forces. It might be a very dangerous thing to want to uproot this capitalist system, as Shama Sawant says, but it's something that absolutely needs to happen, because how much longer can it go on with this unaffordable cost of living, with these rising costs of rents? Something needs to be done, and God-loving Shama Sawant, we have a fighter here who's actually willing to fight for these things and put up that battle and put in the effort. That's commendable. That's as respectable as it gets right there. And thank God and thank Shama Sawant for saying those things and putting it right out there as clear as can be. This isn't an easy thing to do. It's difficult. It's hard. But does that mean it's not worth doing? Hell no. Of course it's worth doing. Of course the fight for these things, it's worth the fight. It's always going to be worth the fight. Even if losers like Crystal Ball don't have the political courage, don't have the will to get these things done, they're going to stab us in the back every single time. Guess what? We're going to keep on fighting, and we're going to keep screaming at the top of our lungs anyways, because it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it, because what is this about? This is about the future of our country. This is about making America once again, a place that's actually worth living in. And not just that, this is about the future of our children. So that's why it's absolutely paramount that we do fight this fight, that we do support leaders like Shama Sawan, because this isn't a hopeless battle. Third parties do have a chance. Independent candidates do have a chance. We can change the system. We can change this country for the better. And that's what this is all about. It might not be easy. It might be hard, but anything hard, it's worth doing because it's for the better, it's for the future. And what else do we have if now? We have hopeless, lying grifters like Crystal Ball and Ryan Dim. So it's up to you watching this video. What side do you choose? What battles do you want to fight? You can keep laying there and accepting the status quo, or you can join a group of fighters like Shama Sawant, a group of working class people, millions of people who are on this same fight, who are raising their consciousness about these very same issues, and do want to make a change for the better in this country. I think that's a very uplifting thing. But you have, of course, people trying to kill the hope and kill any possibility and trying to convince you constantly, every twist and turn, people like Crystal Ball trying to convince you that this just isn't possible. Guess what? I reject that wholeheartedly, as loudly as I possibly can. This is possible, and hopefully it will be possible for Shama Sawan on August 4th. Hopefully she does win her election against Adam Schiff, because this country needs somebody like Shama Sawan fighting for our future, fighting for the working class, and actually getting things done, exposing these sellout politicians for what they actually are. And so that's all I have to say here. It was a very enlightening interview. I'm glad they finally had Shama Sawan on, because in her interview with Adam Schiff, in her debate, it was kind of a debate with Adam Schiff. Crystal Ball didn't even mention that Adam Schiff had an opponent, Shama Sawan, and they didn't want to bring her on. She had to go on social media and mobilize a whole backfire. It backfired against them. She had to mobilize her group of supporters to pressure. She had to put on a whole pressure campaign just to get on breaking points, because that's how sold out they are. But of course, thankfully, the right thing did take place. She did get in front of their audience of millions, and hopefully more and more people are waking up to the fact that they do have other options, because that's the problem here. Many times people don't even know. The people in Seattle, they probably don't even know that they have an independent socialist candidate who's running against this horrible Democrat, Adam Schiff. A lot of people probably don't even know that there's an election going on. So it's very important to raise consciousness, to raise awareness in any way we can. And of course, to keep on fighting this good fight, because it's always going to be worth it. And to the extent that I haven't been here fighting this good fight, I'm very busy. I'm a very busy person myself, and I love to make these videos at any opportunity that I can get. Sometimes life takes its toll and things get in the way, but at any moment that I can, any opportunity that I get, you know, I'm, of course, always going to try to be here, speaking as loudly as I can, saying what I have to say, and fighting this good fight as well. So if you want to join me in this fight, if you want to fight this fight with me, whenever I can, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, make sure to comment on the Wrestling with Politics YouTube channel. Help me spread that awareness about Shama Sawan, and take action yourself, of course. But for now, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all very, very soon.